Greetings. This is Top Hat and Buttered Popcorn. My name is John Savers. I'm your host. And today we'll consider a recent film, Fargo. Fargo is produced by Ethan Coen, directed by Joel Coen, and the screenplay is written by Ethan and Joel. Music was by Carter Burwell and certainly helped this film. The photography was by a gentleman named Deacon. This particular film started out with some marred quality to it. There is at the outset a curious yellow figure. It looks almost like a Chinese glyph of some sort. And a jump cut, which is, of course, not something you would expect from a production, a modern studio production. The film is, I believe, a little bit on the standard Coen type. That is, it is a little bizarre, a little macabre, and gothic, and it has a slapstick element to it, humor. There's something offbeat about the films made by the Coen brothers, and I think this certainly falls into that category. I've liked their films. I think their films are interesting. This film itself is apparently done on a fairly tight budget. It has something of a look of a B movie in that respect. This film has many cuts to it as we flash from one scene to another. I counted something in the order of 45 changes of scenes. It could be more. The locomotives in this particular vehicle are William H. Macy, who gave a wonderful, extraordinary, commendable, superb performance as Jerry Lundegaard. He appears first in this film. And Steve Buscemi gave a wonderful, marvelous performance as Carl Showalter. He appears second in this film. And Frances McDormand gave a very good performance, a memorable performance as Chief Gunderson. In fact, she was so good, I think she may have made a new character in the detective investigative genre. I could easily see her parlaying her role into a TV program of the Columbo McLeod type, a little bit offbeat detective program. But she did quite well. This particular film is helped immensely by the actors and the players. They're very good. This film also is helped, as mentioned, by the music. The basic story is caught by the title, Fargo. Fargo, of course, suggests how far people will go for the sake of money or some other greed. This particular film also, I think, has something of a sense of maybe the Coen brothers themselves being having a sense of Fargo, of being out in a distant area amongst a different group or something, that there is a certain sense of animosity, I think, that they present toward the dominant people in this area, the Scandinavian people. There's an excessive amount of yawing, and we have a picturing of perhaps hockey and the accordion as the two symbols, cultural symbols of the area. And in terms of business, parking lots seem to be the main focus, automobiles and parking lots and so forth. So even there, it seems pretty mundane. The picturing may or may not be fair. I will say that there is an excessive amount of this, and I think that there is a strain of the picturing of these people as as pigs, or relative to pigs, or after the fashion of pigs. We see a good deal of this yawing and nodding, and we see popping of eyes and nodding of heads and so forth. I believe that both Jerry Lundegaard, that's William H. Macy's character, and his wife Jean, who looks almost like his sister, actually, both appear as sort of piggy types. William H. Macy has a florid complexion and big, almost puppy-like eyes, and howdy-doody grin, and all the lines of his face and so forth, and of Jean also could easily suggest Porky Pig or something of this kind. And the two young ladies that we encounter at the, having stayed with Showalter and Grimswood in the Blue Ox Motel, they also have a certain Miss Piggy quality to them within the context of all these images. Perhaps not quite as sophisticated as Miss Piggy, but of that type. And Jean Gustafson Lundegaard's home is filled with images or icons of pigs. We see salt and pepper shaker pigs. We see little pigs here and little pigs there. Everywhere, piggy pig. These images just continue throughout the film. In fact, Stormare, who plays Ger Grimsrud, he looks almost like a hog with bristles and so forth. He has this light white hair and so forth. You could see him easily sort of displayed at a county fair or something as a prize porker. So within this context and so forth like this, there is very much the pig image and so forth, and we can't count it as being a favorable expression on the part of the Coen brothers, and we think that this is not altogether commendable to them or for them. We don't know exactly what their relationship is. We think that they come or from that general area, so the relationship to the people there does not seem to be altogether wholesome because this is not mere humor, but a kind of a mocking, a mean aspect to it. But the Coen brothers, who may be of Irish extraction, they may have in their souls something of that old Irish prayer, God preserve me from the wrath of the Northmen, which still lingers there and causes this sort of bad attitude. Now, the film is one that opens up with a very grainy white all white picture. We see a bird, apparently a bird, swoop into the picture in the top third for a second or two, brief period. Maybe an omen, maybe not. At any rate, we see headlights in the distance and we make out that there's some sort of road here in this whiteness. The lights approach. We see that it is driven by a gentleman, one fellow in the car, and he seems to be towing another vehicle. And as the camera switches to a side shot, we see indeed he is towing a brown vehicle. We see this driver going into a part of Fargo, North Dakota. We see a king of clubs, Jurnt, that he between two converging streets, and he drives into the parking lot there. As he's entering this building, we hear a country and western song that has the lyrics, "Daddy, let me loose and set me free," something of this kind, which itself could be figured as thematic. As this gentleman enters the film, we have an interior shot. We see him immediately encounter a bar and go to his right, past some pool shooters, to a couple of guys who are seated at a booth. They're both on the same side, one large and one small. The large fellow turns out to be Ger Grimsrud, played by Stormare. He has a very light blonde hair, 2 or 3 days worth of bristles on his chin and cheeks. He's wearing a dark leather coat. His partner, the smaller fellow, played by Buscemi, is called Showalter. Now, he has slick black hair, dark hair, pencil mustache. He's wearing a light yellow a sweater. And so the way these two are kind of color coordinated, probably unconsciously, of course. The gentleman who enters is none other than Jerry Lundegaard, who is William H. Macy's character. He introduces himself and says that Shep, or Shep meaning Shep Proudfoot, the Indian, has recommended you guys and two. Now, Showalter appears to be the spokesperson for this duo. Grimsrud seems to be nodding. There's several bottles of beer in front and so forth. They question Lundegaard a little bit about the operation, a puzzle that his announced well-to-do father-in-law and daughter are not approached for the money he wants. It's only $80,000 after all. And if they have this kind of loot, the father, then maybe it'd be better just to ask for it. The deal is that they'll split the $80,000 50-50, and the Showalter Grimsrud duo would also get the Sierra, which apparently has the serial number obliterated. Now, they press him a little bit, and he kind of begs off, this is personal and so forth and whatnot. Well, his game plan is basically this. He is going to actually demand $1 million, kicking in only $80,000 for the twosome plus himself, of which they'll only get $40,000. So he has much bigger ideas, and his notion is not one of hostility toward his wife. He apparently gets along well with her. She is simply a vehicle wherewith which he will be able to climb to a higher level. Now, later on, we see in his office that he once was a golfer. He had many trophies in his office, some wooden tees, I love golf kind of things and whatnot. So you get the idea that when he was a young man, he was something of a hero in this area, probably had a good deal of status within the context of a young man golfer and so forth. He gets married to Jean, and they have a child and so forth. So he has done all the things. He has had a little taste of conquering. He has done the family thing, and then he finds himself kind of locked in a position as a underling, a gopher, so to speak, an ineffective person. The kind of son-in-law, weak son-in-law to the powerful Wade Gustafson, a man of wealth and power and prestige. He wants something of that for himself. He's not a dumb person. He has, in fact, put together a pretty sound scheme. But in his scheming, he seems never to have taken into calculation Murphy's Law, and he does come up a cropper here due to things going awry. He I believe in this, you can infer from this, however, that his motivation is to gain in his approaching middle age, or late youth, as it were, that he is trying to gain some sort of prestige or power, freedom, status, which is all but faded away to the trophies on his shelf in his office. He himself is getting little in the way of respect from other people. We see him trying to sell cars to hostile and unhappy clients, and he trying to put add-ons onto this sell, and they'll have no part of it. And we see that he has a boss, so that even in his father-in-law's outfit, he does not rank as the power. He goes through a kind of a ruse, which we understand is part of the nickel and dime aspect of salesmanship within one of these dealerships. He can't feel too good about it. He has some names, unpleasant names sent his way. Basically, is a cheater and liar and so forth like that, you know. But he's hoping that through this scheme of his, he is going to fly over this trap and become a man of a means free of his father-in-law, and take his place in the sun or snow, whichever, of the Twin Cities. Now, the deal has been set, and Showalter and Grimsrud, rather an odd couple, take off to do the deed. They are part of a series of rather odd couples. We have an actor with a very wonderful, expressive face in Steve Buscemi. He is able to often give a kind of a vulnerable presentation. You think of him as kind of a boyish, vulnerable sort. And then he can rapidly change into a very nasty, angry, tantrum almost throwing type. There's an immaturity about him, and plus this violent aspect. He is, in his pleasant aspect, his boyish aspect, given to talking, chatting, joking, and so forth. So he is able to give a kind of a pleasant aspect to this guy. Grimsrud, on the other hand, is a very phlegmatic character, man of few words, large. He is, to Showalter's otter, he is sort of like a half-hibernated polar bear. We also get this odd coupling with William H. Macy's character, Jerry Lundegaard, who also has a wonderfully expressive face and was a marvelous person to see working in the film. He is juxtaposed with Shep Proudfoot, who is the Madison Avenue type Indian here, tall, big, quiet, picturesque, a fellow, the sort that you would expect to see in commercials or on stamps or coins and so forth for advertisement purposes. There's also the juxtaposition with Lundegaard's son Scotty, who seems to be inexpressive sort of person, taking a little bit after his father, his grandfather, I should say. And indeed, Lundegaard might be juxtaposed a little bit with the Harpurnell character Wade Gustafson and his right-hand man Stan Gross. These also carry over to the Frances McDormand character, who is juxtaposed with her very quiet and inexpressive husband Norman. This particular series also has a certain play on names. You take the name Grimsrud, and it suggests grim, red, bloody, macabre. And in fact, it's well named. We get Showalter, and we get a kind of a sense of Showalter ego. And insomuch as he's something of a ladies' man, Showalter, but we also have the inescapable Chief Gunderson as a police officer, Frances McDormand's character, and that can hardly be missed by anyone. We also have the obscure, I think, a little obscure Shep Proudfoot. We think of Proudfoot, we think of dancing, maybe Indian dancing, medicine dancing. We know that Shep Proudfoot had some sort of drug or narcotic problem, so maybe there's a tie-in a little bit there. You take Jerry Lundegaard. Lundegaard seems to suggest a little bit on your guard or something of that kind. He should have been on his guard all the way, and he was certainly under pressure. We have the Wade Gustafson and as a powerful, dominant businessman type. That gusto sort of is well part of the persona. Stan Gross, we have the businessman right hand, the numbers fellow, and the Gross, of course, is a number, meaning 144, kind of a business or distribution number. And also Gross being coarse, and vulgar and so forth, which also have a certain play here. So it could be that the Coen brothers had a certain play with the names. They, after all, are fictional names of a real-life event. Now, this particular film progresses on with the two villains in the film, the more spectacular villains, I should say, Grimsrud and Showalter, debating on the trip. Showalter trying to get some kind of conversation. Grimsrud wants pancakes and wants to stop someplace. He's hungry. And Showalter said, look, we had pancakes, this morning. Let's go have a beer, maybe a steak or something, Pancakes, So, well, look, what we do is stop at this place in Brainerd, and maybe we'll get something to eat and also get laid. So this is the game plan. They stop at a place, a trucker's stop called the Blue Ox. Of course, this dovetails well with the icon of the area, Paul Bunyan and his Blue Ox Babe. In fact, Showalter and the character Grimsrud are driving past into the Brainerd area. They go past this large wooden carving of Paul Bunyan and the Blue Ox Babe. And there is an ox wielded by Paul Bunyan in this thing, resting on his shoulders, I recall. But the lighting in this particular scene made the statue of Paul Bunyan appear to be sort of maniacal. You get a sense of a Sweeney Todd type personality back there. And this sort of prefigures events to come. We do see that Showalter and Grimsrud do have their two ladies spend the night with them, and so forth. We also might note at this point, kind of parenthetically, that there's a good deal of prominence of television sets in this particular film. In this particular scene we just mentioned, after the sex, there was late night TV, Johnny Carson apparently. And prior to this, when we first meet Wade Gustafson, as Jerry Lundegaard is returning home with groceries, he's watching a sporting event, the Gophers playing hockey. And at the cabin on Moose Lake, Showalter and Grimsrud are banging on the TV, trying to get a good reception. And from this, we get a transition to the Chief Gunderson Norman abode, where they're in bed watching a nature program. And we get a good deal of this television poking through. And it may be suggestive of a population which is unrelating to one another. Thereafter, twosome, Grimsrud and Showalter, continue on toward the Twin Cities. We find Jerry under increasing pressure in this film. He is in his office and he gets a call from a Rowley Diefenbach, who is a GMC financial exec, who wants to know what were the serial numbers on the cars. They had sent a check for $320,000 or something of this sort. And they were supposed to have this money collateralized by cars, and they don't have a proper count because he can't make out the serial number. So Jerry Lundegaard is promising to get those figures out, just in the mail and all that kind of stuff, putting them off basically because one of the cars has been given to the Showalter-Grimsrud duo. Subsequently, the Showalter and Grimsrud duo do in fact break in on Jean. Now Jean is watching television again. She is crocheting or knitting, and she's wearing a pink pajamas or jumpsuit. And while she's concentrating on the tube, we see what probably is Showalter. He is dressed all in black. Looks like a Fed cop. He breaks in, busts in the window, and she notices and begins to run toward the front door. And Grimsrud, all dressed in black and hooded and so forth, comes in the front. Thereafter, the guys, Showalter and Grimsrud, are driving along a very snowy, bleak area at night. They have apparently Jean in the back under maybe the shower curtains are somehow wrapped up. We hear a little muffled sound. She's quite a fighter. Subsequently, and they pull her to the side, and he tries to bribe the trooper. It doesn't work. The trooper demands that he gets out, kind of leans in, and as he leans in, Grimsrud makes a quick move, pulls him in, shoots him in the head, and he flumps to the ground dead. Meanwhile, Showalter has been splattered by blood. His face has little dots of blood from the trooper, and we see him in a kind of wide-eyed, stunned, vulnerable kind of situation, expression, shocked, stating over and over, "Oh, Daddy, oh, Daddy." Later, she meets one of her fellow troopers that we finally find out is under her, a patrol officer. She is referred to as Chief, so we grasp that she's numero uno here. She makes a quick investigation and shows that she knows what she's doing. Sharp mind and good observation. Not so for her assistant, who proves to be something of a doofus. And Showalter and Grimsrud, meanwhile, have taken Jean to a cabin in some remote area, apparently on a lake. We learn later to be Moose Lake. A caution here. For most of the characters in this film, everything was not all right.